KZ fam, I'm back with another video. Thank you guys so much for all your support, man. Here on the YouTube, bro, I've been editing. I've been, what I'm saying, having some trouble getting up episodes, but we're gonna get through this. You know what I'm saying? A minor setback for a huge comeback. Y'all already know, man. Thank you guys so much for all your support. Let's check this out, bro. Cut content from episode 2, solo leveling. Let's see this. I'm really interested in these because, hey, I want to see what we missed out on.
This was pretty cool. Scenes like this are actually anime original, and I'm 100% here for all of it. Just like how it was with episode 1 though, a lot of the finer details focusing on the people around Sung couldn't make it due to how much they need to cover this season. There was also a bit more to Sung's grind in the Red Gate, so if you want to see just how much he leveled up, along with what you may have missed from his boss fight against Baraka, that's exactly what we're going to talk about this video. It's all the differences between the anime, the manhwa, and the novel. Let's get started.
Let's go.
Episode 14, I Suppose You Aren't Aware, covering chapters 53 to 55 from the manhwa and chapters 63 to 66 from the web novel. To start things from the very beginning of the Red Gate incident, I want to focus on who Sung was with first. Reason being that, as new recruits from the White Tiger Guild, this was actually their very first time doing a dungeon raid.
Oh, really?
How then were they so composed when plunged into the Red Gate? Well, that's because they were taught that anything could happen. Each and every one of them had already gone through extensive training outside the gates. That being the case, the fact this was their first raid didn't mean that they were ill-prepared, it just meant they were inexperienced.
Facts.
As soon as this gate was completed, all of them were set to start doing high-rank dungeons. It essentially made this nothing more than a practice run for the 12 of them. Their being 12 was actually one of the differences the anime didn't show us, since here we saw that they only had 8 hunters. The full strike squad consisted of 1 A rank, 7 B ranks, and 4 C ranks. Completely overkill for what a C rank gate normally required, but made sense since this was, after all, practice. Now, an interesting property which made this gate visibly different from the outside was the strange viscous nature with which it absorbed people. Normally the surface was supposed to return to being solid as soon as someone entered, but for some reason this one kept rippling like a liquid. It even clung to Sung's hand like glue the moment he touched it, resulting in its ability to swallow him whole. So, the gate would turn red and the White Tiger Guild would call Beck, leading to the whole outburst where he would express his anger towards the association.
Sorry about that.
It didn't really matter that they got the reading wrong now though, since whether it was initially C, B, or A ranked, the fact the gate was red now trumped all of that. Besides, they couldn't even remeasure the gate if they wanted to, since red gates had the distinct property of leaking 0 magical energy. It's just that Beck knew from personal experience red gates were incredibly dangerous. So much so that he was ready to count all those who were trapped as KIA. A new character had actually arrived right after Beck to dissuade that notion, basically saying how Kim Chul would be able to pull through for them. The reason this man was so invested in Kim was because he was the chief of the White Tiger Guild's 1st Division, the team responsible for prepping those who would be on the main strike force. Training was usually handled by On's 2nd Division, but any hunters ranked A or higher were always handled by Sung Chan's 1st Division. It was mandatory for them to go through a more specialized and intense training regimen. So, because Sung Chan knew firsthand just how capable Kim Chul was, he truly believed he wouldn't fall behind any of the White Tiger Guild's main hunters, let alone a measly E-rank unsuspected reawakened. This was its own little conflict outside the gate, essentially showing the competition between the White Tiger Guild's 1st Division and 2nd Division. On didn't seem all too into it, but it seems 1st Division is always trying to show up 2nd Division. In any case,
that's funny.
Beck had actually gone on to explain why it is red gates are always so fatal for hunters. First, you never know where you're gonna end up, so you could be teleported anywhere from a scorching desert with 60 degrees Celsius temperatures, all the way to a poison-filled jungle or snow-covered wasteland. This makes preparing near impossible, since unless you bring equipment ready for everywhere, you're probably gonna be caught off guard in at least one way or the other. So, it's these unexpected conditions that often lead to the weakest dying first, since not only do you have to acclimate to the new environment around you, but you also have to do so while fighting high-level monsters. It was a challenging feat that only the truly strong could possibly pull through from. All that was just the bare minimum though, since even after acclimating and surviving, you still had to find a way to procure food and water. Sure, you could enter with enough food to last for weeks, but with red gates lasting up to several months, eventually you would need to provide for yourself.
Several months is crazy.
The only truly helpful tool to help you get through this was your magic energy compass guiding you to the boss. With this pointing you in the direction of the most powerful source of magical energy, it would eventually get you to the boss. It's just you might be following it for weeks or months. So, with unforgiving surroundings, constant hunger, and the looming presence of monsters, a red gate truly was one of the most challenging endeavors a hunter could go through. It was totally justifiable for Beck to think that no one would make it. Now, before we get to what was happening inside the gate, the last thing I want to mention from outside was a couple details related to Huang Dong-soo.
Okay.
He actually wasn't here at all in the novels, but in the manhwa he had found Sung by tracking his records with the association. He then immediately sniffed out that An was covering up for him, not because he knew that An was good at scouting, but rather because he just had a solid intuition on when something fun was happening. Consider it a personal sixth sense of his.
No wonder,
To finally get to what was happening inside the gate, I suppose the best place to start is with this. Sung really didn't like the cheap tactic the Ice Elves opened with, leading him to hold a personal grudge against the ones who tried it. It's actually why he snapped the arrow right in front of them. He wanted them to know that he was pissed. Of course, the two elves only saw this as a challenge, leading them to make that motion in return directed right towards Sung.
So
I know that's not really all that different.
I thought he was pissed because they targeted Song Yi. But I guess he was just pissed at their cheap tactics. That's
from
funny.
What we saw in the anime, but it does highlight the more aggressive Sung the novel version of him is known to be. He definitely flexes more here than he does in the manhwa or anime. Now, when Kim went on to enact his plan, he was so intent on clearing the gate that he was actually ready to do so by himself if need be.
That's crazy.
The way he spoke was so assuringly confident, though, that wasn't a problem he would have to worry about. Instead, there was a bit more back and forth between him and the lower hunters, eventually resulting in him calling them baggage. This wasn't an insult they were very happy with, but the moment Kim glared in their general direction, they immediately backed down since, well, what else could they do? The groups would then split into the ones we saw, giving Sung the opportunity to get to know the White Tiger hunters better. It's here he'd learn why it was they weren't very afraid, but that confidence was something he knew would disappear quickly. Reason being that Sung knew firsthand no amount of training could prepare them for the life and death situations awaiting them. To know something was far different from experiencing it. All these hunters were doing were simply showing off, not realizing just how terrifying the gate truly was. As soon as they see what's exactly at stake, Sung knew their false confidence would come crashing down on top of them. I mean, for the many years it took to build that confidence up, a single moment was all it took to break it down. Such was the unfortunate fate awaiting these rookies. Heejin would then get to know Sung herself, basically probing to find out why it is she felt so confident in him. Though he never answered her questions, his true confidence combined with what she believed she saw him do made her all but certain he was strong. She had barely pieced together the way that Sung had moved here, but her experience as a top athlete and her awakening into a melee hunter made her confident in her dynamic vision. It all served to reinforce her assumptions even more. Now, for more context on why Sung felt more confident in the forest, well, the fact the elves were wearing pelts made from bears made it clear the bears were weaker than the elves. Part of the danger of a dungeon was not knowing what would pop out when, so to remove that element of uncertainty was actually a huge advantage.
That observation is crazy.
10 gold each, so out of the 430,000 he had earned up to this point, the items he bought here pretty much cost him nothing. Unlike items with special effects added to them, regular items like these didn't cost a lot at all. So Sung would prep his group and kill the bear, then gain a level up and become the group's leader. It was an immediate suggestion since this was the moment Heejin knew that she made the right call after all. Now she just feared that Sung might leave and do his own thing, so rather than wait for that to happen, she quickly suggested that Sung become their leader officially. It was a role Sung figured would make things easiest for him. 3 days would then pass with the weak hunters living it up, all while Sung would hunt bears like he had some sort of vendetta against them. The way his eyes lit up every time he saw them truly was terrifying for those who got to witness it. It definitely
Yeah.
made people curious about what his true rank was, but out of fear of being kicked out of the only safe haven here, the group decided not to talk about it further. So, in this first instance where Sung had come across what he could only describe as a bear farm, his shadow army got to show us why they were at least better than a pack of beasts. Whereas beasts fought mindlessly, Sung's army not only had the ability to regenerate, but also cooperated in a way that made them a pretty cohesive unit. Like, the mages could bombard the whole battlefield with magic, knowing full well the infantry would regenerate and get right back in there. This was what gave them the advantage, since the weakened bears could no longer defend against the unrelenting onslaught of the soldiers. In the end, it increased their levels from 1 to either 2 or 3. Their work had also raised Sung's own level by 3 as well. More bears could then be heard in the distance, which, as you'd expect, made Sung smile knowing he'd be able to get to them tomorrow. To switch things over to Kim Tool's side of the story now, it wasn't just the Ice Elves which had caused his defeat here. First, they had fought in to beat snowmen, then they lost 2 in a subsequent fight against some Ice Yetis, after which the Ice Elves would pounce to get the jump on them. They were sneakily waiting for Kim's team to exhaust themselves before launching their own attack.
We didn't see that.
Instant, all the hunters except Kim were dead, leaving him to witness the barbaric nature of who he was up against. Like, the elves had gone so far as to taunt Kim with the decapitated head of his comrade. It was the action which spurred him to run away in terror. It didn't matter that he was running into ice bear territory, since compared to the snowmen, yetis, and ice elves, they were very much the least of his worries. Another 2 days would pass with Sung still farming bears, clearing a few more farms worth to the point that they were nearing extinction. At least him and his shadows got to level up from them, so much so that where before his shadows would need to fight 2-on-1 to win, now they could pull off a victory 1-on-1. His increased proficiency had even leveled up his shadow storage limit to a max of 30 now. It was at this point that Sung felt he should hunt the boss, since with no more bears to farm levels from and a dungeon break still several months out, there wasn't much value in sticking around anymore.
I didn't know he had a limit for shadows.
He also had to find that one elf that pissed him off back here. Though 5 days had passed, Sung still hated how it mocked him and the other hunters. Now, in the meantime, Kim was completely starved, surviving only off a measly rabbit ever since he'd stepped foot here. That's why he was able to pick up the scent of food so easily, and it's also why he was so quick to anger. At this point, he was essentially ravenous. In fact, even if the food he smelled was coming from a camp of ice elves, his hunger made him believe that he could subdue them and get away with it. Kim was so hungry that he couldn't even make simple logical decisions anymore. That makes sense. Would find the hunters, lash out at what he believed to be betrayal, then get slapped so hard that Sung's hand would start steaming from the impact. The elves would then make their entrance, revealing the boss whose aura was way stronger than all the others. It was so oppressive that Sung couldn't help but get goosebumps from it. The rest were grunts he knew he could easily take care of, mainly because his recent level grind made him that much stronger. Now, this particular elf was actually the one Sung had it out for, so rather than dash towards him and take his head himself, he instead just threw his dagger at a speed it couldn't even react to. It was a kill I'm sure Sung was extremely satisfied with. This brings us to the interesting conversation Sung had shared with Baraka, which, though filled with hints that should have got Sung thinking, didn't really trigger any thoughts at all. He chalked up the not human comment as him just being a player, while the stutter and lack of reaction to it made it clear probing for information was useless. It was no doubt some bona fide NPC behavior, but that didn't matter to Sung at all. No, the only thing that did was being able to turn Baraka into a shadow soldier. This was the only thing Sung could think about ever since Baraka made his entrance, and it's probably why he didn't think too deeply about anything else. Sung just wanted a new soldier and the cool-looking daggers he possessed. Of course, Sung
He's
knew
enjoying
he
the
couldn't
game.
beat Baraka alone, so what he needed to find was another strong ally. This leads to a fake out with Kim, since the way Sung kicks his sword towards him like he's seeking his help makes it seem like he's doing so in order to team up with him. Obviously that wasn't the case, but as the reader we don't yet suspect that Sung is baiting Kim into becoming a shadow soldier himself. So while Sung was getting cut and sliced in his fight with Baraka, Kim finally woke up to find his sword next to him. This was incredibly lucky for both of them because Sung knew he wouldn't be able to last much longer, and Kim saw his opportunity for revenge. in the manhwa Kim got skewered like this, then there was another cool panel where we see Sung casting her eyes in the shadow of Igris's cape. Though the anime didn't show it.
Hold up, that's fire. Hold up.
In the manhwa Kim got skewered like this, then there was another cool panel where we see Sung casting her eyes in the shadow of Igris's cape. Though the anime didn't show it, it was while Sung was busy doing so that Igris went on to distract Baruka. This was a good way to show just how strong Baruka was, since Igris barely served as a challenge to him.
That's
it didn't
crazy.
take long for Baruka to slice right through him.
What?
In fact, the only reason Igris wasn't defeated completely was because he was able to rely heavily on his regeneration abilities. Now, Sung's choice of name for iron was because Chul in Korean meant iron. His grade of a shadow was the same as Igris's at night grade, then though his towering stature made keeping up with agile opponents difficult, his innate aggro skills Shadow Provocation made such a limitation unimportant. Iron instead made his opponents come to him. This too saved Igris from being defeated completely, since the moment Baruka was about to land the finishing blow, Shadow Provocation immediately switched his focus from Igris to him. Reinforcement was another skill allowing Iron to tank all of Baruka's attacks, creating time for Sung and Igris to join the battle together. At first, there wasn't much all three could do, but with each subsequent hit they managed to land, these small cuts and bruises started to reduce Baruka's agility ever so slowly.
That makes sense.
Long before Baruka's smile was gone, and with each dodge reducing his already depleted stamina, it was only a matter of time before he was finished, just like how we saw in the anime. In the end, the entire fight had earned Sung 2 whole levels. For Miss Park, who was watching the fight, she was most worried about how she was going to explain all this. She seemed to be on the side of keeping Sung's secrets, so that was a message she was trying to convey to the others. Like, just the fact they were even able to think about what they were gonna do outside the gate, well, that was only possible because of him. Her own personal feelings were now far beyond that of shock or gratefulness, and were now simply at a stage of awe. It's an important feeling to understand, since it'll come up again in some cutscenes I'm sure will be involving her next episode. The last thing I want to talk about in this episode is the minor spat between Sung and Beck after the gate.
Oh, that was fire,
The main reason why Beck had backed off at all was because Sung's message was actually pretty valid, and the immense pressure he applied along with it made it clear he wasn't to be messed with right now. This was enough for Beck to become invested in Sung, since not just anyone could stand up to him the way that Sung just did. Not only that, but Beck could tell from Sung's powerful aura that if the two were to fight right here and now, he would need to be ready to lose an arm or worse. That's just how strong Sung had become after the Red Gate.
Damn.
So, given that this was the impression Beck got from Sung, Beck was ready to give On literally every resource to acquire him. It didn't matter how much money it would take, Beck wanted Sung in the White Tiger Guild now. But yeah, that's
why he was so desperate to get him, bro.
Sung's new dagger buffed his stats by this, and its grade of A made it perfect to replace Kasuka's Fang, which was becoming less and less effective lately. Oh, and the car scene does in fact happen in the manhwa too. Anyway, if you liked what you saw and want to see more solo leveling, then feel free to leave a like and subscribe.
That's very interesting. That's sad that we didn't get to see Kim Chul fight against the Yetis. You know what I'm saying? That would have been fire. But it's kind of interesting to see these the cut content from these episodes, you know what I'm saying? And it's crazy how they have to get through so much in this season, so we're probably gonna get a lot of skipped content. But yeah, we're just gonna keep watching these and see what happens, you know what I'm saying? See what we miss out on. You already told me what the difference between the web novel and the manga is, which the web novel focuses more on writing, and the manga, you know, is more artistic and has a lot more going on. So very interesting to see. But anyways, thank you guys so much for watching this video, KC fam. I love y'all. Stay positive, stay healthy, and most definitely keep that strong mentality, man. Out.